Hi folks, welcome back to the Horde. So it's about 11:30 and it's actually 11:35. It's 11:30:15, the last day of November. This says 36 degrees. That says somewhere around 37, and it says welcome to Monday. For our friends internationally, it's 2.4 degrees Celsius and 50% humidity. And the sun has been kind of in and out today, so I'm not fully charged. Just quickly, this is a by request video. One of my subscribers is working on a quad with a buddy of his, and I guess the story on it was it was running. Engine blew up, and it was a TRX250, which is basically a big red with an extra tire up front. And I'm thinking he has an 86, and as a matter of fact, I'm thinking he might have the same thing as is sitting right here in my shed. So just to give you an idea, right? If you look at this, right, you guys could see 86. It was made 9 of 85. Just quickly, sometimes people like the stories, sometimes people really don't care. This bike was one of two. A guy bought this, and I don't know if this one was for a buddy of his, an older son, his father-in-law, and they used to go hunting. So this was one bike, and then the other one is still alive, or it was last we spoke. This bike, I think this was Grandpa's bike, if I'm recalling the story. I think this was Grandpa's bike. And I think the story was Grandpa let the kids do whatever they wanted to it. So after, and it's an 86, right? So, I mean, we're looking at, 20, 30 years, right? She's 30 years old. So at some point, the guy found it in the barn, upside down, the plastic off it, the front wheel off it, and so he righted it. He you know, and then once again, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years went by, and it was just kind of abandoned. He brought it to a car show, and I bought it from him at a car show. And I don't recall what I paid for it. It wasn't much. If I had to guess, between $200 and $300. So I got the bike home, and I managed to. I took the side cover off it. Oh God! Right. And I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see in here, but the inside of the flywheel's messed up, and the teeth are stripped off of here. I guess they were trying to start it, and they just kept trying, and eventually they chewed up the teeth here, and metal got in there. Then the magnet brought it into the flywheel, and there's not a lot of space in there, and eventually what happens is the metal chews up the stator, and then you have a dead stator, then you have no spark, or the thing acts like it's seized up when you go to kick it or turn the starter just strips. It acts like it's seized. So I guess I got it that far, and I stopped fooling with it, but you can see it is free. Anyway, now back to my subscriber. My subscriber got one of these, and they blew up the motor. Somehow the motor got destroyed, and they put a motor on it from a 250 SX, which is a three-wheeler. And what makes this bike interesting, and I've not had a 300 ES, but my buddy William Stanton likes the 300 ES. He's got a couple of those floating around. Anyway, what they have is they have two CDIs. There's one of them there, and if I had to guess, that's probably the one for reverse. And then there's one of them here, or not here, because somebody took it. It's missing, right? So that's one thing to note. You have two CDIs on this thing, and I'm logically, I don't know if, I mean, from talks I've had with Bill, and I've picked up that, I don't know if you guys are seeing this, that you have a neutral switch and a reverse switch. And what they do is they make some decisions depending on the status of these lights here, or the status of the switches on the side of the motor. Basically, on this side of the motor, you have your neutral and your reverse switch. On this side of the motor, you have your stator and your pulsar. Anyway, if you follow the wires that come from the neutral switch, you'll see on this bike you got four wires, right? Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, I'm not lying to you, right? You see 4 wires there. That's important to note, because if you're trying to do a swap between a 250 SX and that engine, and actually it appears as if all the three-wheelers, because what I have is I have an 86. This is an 86 Big Red here, right? Built in 6 of 85, so it's an early 86. But I followed these wires, and where'd I lose them? Anyway, take my word for it. There's only 2 of them that come from the far side of the engine, from the neutral side of the engine. Then I have this guy over here. Excuse me as I drag myself about. This is an 85. Right, and she was made 3, might have been made back in 3 of 84, I can't see that number, but this guy only has 2 wires coming from that side of the engine. So first of all, it's going to get interesting on how to hook things up for you, such that all that logic is satisfied. What would I do? If this were my bike, quite honestly, I'll show you what's important, and I would just go forward from there. Now, you all have changed the stator, right? And this is your typical stator. These 3 yellow wires, bang, 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 that's what powers your battery. It's got a 3-phase alternator in it. This guy here, wrapped in brown, right, wrapped in black, has the red and black wire. You can see it there, and you can see it here. Right, this whole harness has been hacked up pretty good. Anyway, if you go from red and black wire to ground, and it's important that you have all the screws in, or you see this right here, if you don't have all the screws in, you don't get a good ground. You don't get a good ground, you're screwed, right? no good ground, no good ignition. And you're not getting good ground, once again, unless that screw is in. This is all nice and clean, and that's in. Second thing, between here, this actually, all this stuff bolts into a cover. So between here and here, they have yellow. On some of the other bikes, it's blue and white, or blue and yellow. They just went with yellow, but these are the 3 wires for the in that plug. These are the 3 wires that go to here, and you can take a moment with an ohm meter to figure that out. But this yellow wire comes out here, and once again, between the yellow wire and ground, this would be bolted to ground, you get about 300 ohms. Between the red and black wire and ground, you get about 300 ohms. So those are the 2 tests you should do on this. Okay? That will tell you whether your pulser's good and your coil's good. And why do I specifically mention those? Because really, those are the only 2 things in the world I care about. On this side, right, you can see they actually use, am I showing you here? They actually use, looks like blue with a white stripe, and the red and black, I'm having trouble getting to it. The red and black, you can see it's the far one here, right? You can see it right there, actually, pretty good. So these are the ones you got to care about. You unplug this, right, and that one, and obviously you like ground. Those ground wires, there are 2 ground wires there hooked up the same. So you care about, once again, the blue and white and the red and black. Boy, they got these about the same color. What do you do with those wires? I have not fired up the big red on the pit bike ignition. And the pit bike ignition, I got that sitting, it's still sitting on this guy, right? I have not done that. I did a whole video on this, so I have not fired up big red on that ignition. But I have fired up the big red over there on this ignition box. I would not fool around with that whole 2 CDI strange ignition. It looks like you guys are a couple of adults. I mean, obviously I worry about doing this more if I was going to let a kid ride the bike. What'll happen is, without the 2 CDI system, if you just smash this box on it, you'll be able to put it into reverse and go backwards and rev the engine as hard as it'll rev in first gear. So you'll be able to wind it right to the edge, and then when you shift it, or when you're going backwards, I mean, you'll be able to go backwards at a speed perhaps you don't want a young person going backwards at. What would I do? I'd build this guy, and I mean, I made this video a while ago. This plastic box costs about $8. The battery holders are about $1.05. The switch is $3. The pigtail connectors are $10. The CDI 16. The coil is 16. So for less than $50, you can build this box just like it is here. That's the schematic. This is looking at the back of the CDI, so when you're looking at the wires, that's the way you want to be looking at it. And I put colors on them, right? So just slowly scan over this. Right, that's the coil right there. Let me back up. So now you can see the whole thing. Hopefully you can see the colors. If there's any questions, please ask. So yeah, that's the parts list. Here's the parts I use to build, well, here's the parts I use to build it. So you got to make sure it says DC, CDI, 6-pin scooter, and that's one, right? The GY6 6-pin 12-volt CDI, kind of important to say that. So that's first. Second is the pigtail, and that's where that came from. Third is the coil, and that's where that came from. Once again, not very particular about the coil. Fourth, the switch. I went with 5 pieces. The battery holders, you need 2 of those because you need 12 volts. Or actually, there's 8 AA batteries, so you just need 1 of those. The box. And for less than $50, you can smash this together. And then it does not matter if your stator's dead. The only thing you need is a live pulsar. That's all you need. If your pulsar's alive, you're good. Right? And about your other wiring, just leave it there. Who cares? I mean, you can even hook up everything except the pulsar. Who cares? And if you do hook up everything, even though you don't have enough wires, I'm not sure how. I mean, you could futz around with it. You could probably get your neutral light to light up if you spend a little time with it. You could probably get your you can probably get your reverse light to come on and junk like that. But once again, you don't care if your stator was eaten alive, because you're using the batteries from your 8-volt box or 8-cell box. You're using your 12 volts. It's internal. It's all. Matter of fact, I'm down to 1 screw here, and I can even show you it all fits nicely in here. Right? There's the 8 batteries. There's the 12-volt CDI. There's the on and off switch. There's the coil bolted on with the wire coming out. Right? Then all you have to do is, once again, this goes to your pulsar. This goes to one of them green wire grounds. And this goes to the case. Why do you need it to go to the case? Because you don't get spark if you don't, you got to go between spark and case. So, case, one of them green wire grounds, and you hook that to the pulsar. That's all, right? And you got yourself ignition. And you, if you get the 12-volt part of your system working, to get your 12-volt part of the system working, you can just run 12 volts into one side of the switch, the other part of 12 volts to ground, and then you don't need the AA batteries in there. I personally like having the AA batteries in there because I use that box mostly for testing. And with all the testing I'm doing, I don't want the variability of, is the battery I'm using good or bad? I can tell the battery's good because I see the little LED light come on. So literally, you got to hook, once again, to ground, and this is all bolted to the cover that goes over the flywheel. So you got to hook to ground, and where's the sensor? Oh, yeah, this kind of sticks up on here. Actually, this goes... Is this inside or outside? It should be inside. It's got to be inside. I'm not quite sure where it fits. Anyway, I got a few pieces missing at the moment. I've been organizing the garage, so I've lost a few things. Anyway, a magnet has to pass this for you to get a pulse, right? And the flywheel has to go by that if you're attempting to use a stator powered thing. These are all for your DC circuitry, right? 3-phase. That'll creates 3 phases of AC. You go through your rectifier regulator, and it charges your battery up for you. So forget the 3 wires that go to that plug. They're not doing anything for you. In my case, and I'm not sure why they went yellow here and ground. So all you have to do is 1 red wire here, black wire here, another black wire to the case, put the spark plug on, turn it on, and hit the starter, and she should take right off. About all the other wires, you don't care. All you care about is your pulse generator. This thing just needs a pulse from the pulse generator. Everything else is taken care of. This thing has the curve built right into it, so it does a great job with the 250 ES motor. It also runs these 200s. Greatest, when out of all the things I've built to make my life easier, this really has. I just typically come up with your standard, ordinary, everyday clone carburetor for about $20. I bolt that up, and as a matter of fact, this thing is wearing it. You can see it's nice and shiny. As a matter of fact, this one even came with a gas line and a fuel filter. But $20 clone carburetor, then you build this box, about $50, and you could get about anything started. Any questions out there, please ask. This is what I would do. You could be troubleshooting that harness forever and drive yourself absolutely crazy. Once you get everything running, and your pulser's good, right? You test both those things to ground, whether it's your ignition part of the stator coil or your pulser. They both seem to have ohm value somewhere around 300 ohms. I checked a couple of these, and they've been consistent with that. So you should get somewhere around 300 ohms. Depending on the meter you're using, depending on what range you're on, it could affect it. Like if you're on 20K and you're looking at 300 ohms, you might get a different value than if you're looking at 2000K, or let's say you were looking at 190 ohms. You'll probably get a different reading if you're looking at 190 ohms on the 200 ohm or the 2000 or the 20,000, and you probably can't read it up at 20K or up in the mega ohm range. It probably isn't sensitive, or it's probably too sensitive, and it'll more or less look like a short. All right. Any questions? Once again, get back to me. Thanks for watching and commenting and subscribing. Sorry this has been a long video, but sometimes it takes a long time to explain things. Okay, folks, take care now, and we'll catch up with you all soon. Bye.